Not sure if y'all have seen my other video about Andrew Cuomo that I released. If you haven't, go check it out. It dives more in detail on exactly what went on with this scandal that he's involved with right now. But the SparkNotes version is that he allowed nursing home patients to go back into nursing homes kind of in the beginning of COVID, and allowed them to go back in without being tested first. This led to, obviously widespread death within those nursing home communities, obviously because older folks are most susceptible to this virus. He let them go back in there without getting tested first. It was pretty much inexplicable why. Then, we came to find out that it was because he was given donations by those very executives of those nursing home companies or private hospitals. And he also gave them a corporate liability shield, meaning that they could not be sued for malpractice and not, having a safe environment, not only for the residents, but for their workers as well. So that was the gist of the story. But recently, one of the New York legislature assemblyman, Ron Kim, came out with his story about how Governor Andrew Cuomo called him and threatened to ruin his career if he didn't cover this up, or if he didn't, I guess get off his ass about this. And Assemblyman Ron Kim was not having it, and he came out and said, "This is what Cuomo called me, and this is what he said. I believe we should impeach him." He's been, one of the vocal supporters of that impeachment for Cuomo. So he went on Rising, and this is what he had to say.
That very same language, that sort of corporate liability shield language that was used for nursing homes in New York, was then picked up by Republicans at the federal level, and they've been trying to push that now nationwide. Why do you think that Governor Cuomo was so intent on gaining that liability shield for what you said described as some of the worst nursing home actors?
Yeah, so if you follow the money, Governor Cuomo got about $1.5 million in campaign donations from the same industry lobbyist who wrote the language of the legal immunity, who bragged about it on the press release, and then immediately took it down because once I found out, and I voted against that budget, but once I found out the details, what it meant, I immediately put in a repealer bill and called them out and issued 3 reports. One report called License to Kill, because that's really what I felt like we did. Like, imagine an industry that's 65% for profits, and the first thing you do at the peak of the pandemic is give them a blanket immunity. Do you think they're going to invest in PPE and hire more staff? No. We made that argument, and all of a sudden, they decoupled the number. We were at number 1, number 2 nursing home deaths, and the moment they decoupled it, we ranked number 33, 34, and no one started talking about it, and we didn't have the rationale anymore to repeal it. And that's really, in my opinion, what happened here, and he needs to be held accountable for those decisions.
Mm-hmm. So talk to us about the steps of that, sir. I mean, he's calling you. He's obviously trying to bully you into trying to stop an investigation and into looking into these actions. What are the next steps in terms of moving forward with people like yourselves, federal authorities, and more? I know you can only speak to what you know, but are his tactics of bullying going to work in this case?
Well, I just issued an op-ed today. It just got published an hour ago, making the argument for impeachment. And I will be joining my conference today to push our Democratic conference. And it's not the governor. It is entirely about protecting the sanctity of the legislative body so we can do our job as a co-equal government. He has made many attempts to implicate us in his web of lies and in his pay-to-play schemes with his biggest donors that we have nothing to do. But if you go ask his office now, this is what they'll tell you. Oh, it's the Senate and Assembly who passed the legal immunity. It was their bill. It was not our bill. But this is what he does well. When he does something corrupt, he tries to rope you in, and then if you don't, he'll intimidate you and threaten your career if you do not comply with this request.
Beginning of COVID, he was really lionized by the media. I mean, CNN was the worst offender, having him on for interview after interview with his own brother in primetime, joking around about the size of his nose, just completely softball questions, while you were out there trying to raise real questions about the actions and the decision making that occurred. How frustrating was it for you to watch that type of media lionization and just softball treatment while people's lives were literally at risk?
You have no idea. It just felt so demoralizing at times. And I felt like I was living an alternative reality for a couple of months because I saw the truth of what's happening. And I felt like no one was listening to what I was saying. I reached a point where we actually took 70 pages of our report, took it to the United Nations and say there is a violation of human rights that had occurred. A crime against humanity has occurred in New York State because no one else seemed to care. And I needed to document what I saw as someone that mattered. That's the level of frustration that I reached at some point. But again, everyone in New York, like you said, knew about his abusive tactics against staff, elected officials, even journalists for years. But all these years, I think he's used this extreme power, intergenerational network, and privilege to get away with it. But now we're taking a stance saying enough is enough. Let's move forward.
Okay, so wow. Those are the details. That's it. You see that Cuomo is an extremely corrupted individual. This was allowed to happen because he was given cover by the media. He was giving fawning coverage by the media, by CNN. He went on with his brother, like Krystal was saying, and had these softball questions, acting like tough guy, acting like, oh, I'm being adversarial towards my brother, when in reality he wasn't asking him about the real people he was putting in harm's way with these policies. But I mean, that's what you get on corporate news. And so Ron Kim came out and was saying how frustrated and upset he was about this. I thought that part where he said they sent it to the UN because they really felt like this was a crime against humanity. I thought that was really powerful, really strong, and I think he's right. I think when you're putting people in harm's way, whether they're old, young, anything in between, you should not be excused for that just because these people were in nursing homes and ostensibly going to, die sometime soon. But that doesn't mean that you can. It's just open season, allowing COVID back, in those nursing homes and not allowing those people that let it run rampant be held accountable because you put something in the legislation to protect them because you got donations from them, right? So that was an extremely harrowing account of the corruption that is within politics. And like Krystal was saying, this isn't something that's new with Cuomo. He has a history of doing this, and I really wish he would actually use that power that he has and that strong arm type mentality and methodology to actually pressure some of the people within his legislature that maybe don't agree with the New York Health Act, trying to pass single payer in New York. Maybe he should pressure the people against that, but no, he wants to pressure someone looking out for old people in nursing homes and trying to protect those families. He wants to pressure that guy, not the people that are holding up single payer healthcare in New York. He doesn't want to pressure. I mean, he would have to obviously pressure himself, but he doesn't want to pressure anyone who's not for taxing the billionaires within New York City and New York State at large. That would create huge revenues that they could use for, the school systems there and, multitude of other things that they could use that for in New York. Obviously, they have a large population of poor, black and brown communities and people. So there's a lot that money could go to. He doesn't want to pressure those people or tax those people. Instead, he wants to cut Medicaid in the middle of a pandemic, and he wants to increase the police budget. These are the things that Cuomo wants to do. And so I think he 100% should be impeached. He really should be prosecuted. And that's the thing, when governments and corporations, when they allow people to just die, it's almost seen as benign, right? Like, he should be prosecuted for that. He allowed those people to go back in the nursing home without being tested in the middle of a pandemic when they're the most susceptible to the virus. He allowed that to happen for money. That's rank corruption, and it really should be prosecuted. So no, there doesn't need to be an investigation into it. I love the energy that Ron Kim came at this with, because he should be prosecuted for this. He should be impeached for this. He has no place in a position of power deciding what happens to people's lives. If we see that when the cameras aren't on him, this is what he's doing. When he's working behind the scenes, he's not working to advance the interest of the public at large there in New York City. He's working to advance the interest of executives, corporations, wealthy folks, people that give him his campaign donations and help him stay in power there. So great job, Ron Kim. I'm behind you 100%. Yeah, let's get him impeached.